Weather Channel.
Yes, I saw her tweet that.
So instead of the nosy girl down the hall, we got the panicked girl down the hall. Now we're all going to die from wind, which, depending on what I ate the night before, is always possible. Rushing wind blow through this temple. We do have, let's get it all straight, a tornado watch, which means conditions are favorable for a tornado. We have a wind advisory. To my knowledge, we do not have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect at this time. So most of the attention is on wind and straight wind damage and power outages.
Is it a wind advisory or a high wind warning?
That's a high wind warning,
right,
boys.
Now,
here we go.
Are we just into fancy new verbiage here, Ken, or is that actually a different distinction?
That is a different distinction.
All right, so I'm going to say high. I've never heard this one. High wind warning?
High wind warning.
Yes, sir. High wind warning.
All right. Now, to our knowledge, there is no severe thunderstorm warning in effect for any particular county.
Not that I see in Tennessee.
All right. Well, you're solving everything today. Maybe you can help me with something else.
What is that, Brother Mike?
I have been walking past as I travel and following for the better part of a year or two the massive renovations at BNA. I do love our airport, by the way. You know, you ought to stop now and then and thank God for the things that you love. I do love our airport. I go to a lot of different airports, and I love ours. And now we're going to have this big, beautiful new renovation. Now, that's been going on for 2 years. How is it that Pete Buttigieg is coming to celebrate something we've already done? You can't get him to a chemical spill, but when it comes to an airport that we've already funded and done, I mean, it's virtually done. And he's coming with what?
He's just trying to get some Morgan Wallen tickets.
Wait.
There she is.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the nosy girl down the hall. This is the panicked girl. Buckered in at home.
Oh, I'm in my closet, man.
I bet
and I'm
you-
not coming out.
I was just going to say, have you identified your safe space, panic girl?
Oh, yes. It is my walk-in closet because it is kind of in the center of my home. I've got my bug-out bag. I've got my tennis shoes on. I've got
Wait a
my
minute.
teeth
Stop. I got to know what's in your bug-out bag.
Okay.
You get like a half a pint of early times, some beef jerky. What do you have in that?
There is
Isn't it
a little bit
amazing?
of vodka in there.
What do we all grab if we think we're going to have to survive for? Well, I'm going to need some Xanax. I can tell you that right now. Walking around with clogged arteries.
Okay, it's funny you say that. I do have a bottle of Tylenol in there. I have a toothbrush and toothpaste.
Is that in case you get a muscle pull in a small space? You need your Tylenol.
Well,
right?
you just never know what kind of board might fly and hit you in the middle of a tornado.
What goes through your panicked mind? I guess you just zoom in on every possible worst case scenario. That's how you get there, right?
What I'm focused on today, truthfully, and I've already had a conversation with your wife about this.
Oh, I know. But you won't scare. Let me tell you something. You won't gin anything up there. This woman
she's
would
excited.
run. She was excited, exactly.
Yeah, she's
Really?
excited.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, she is. She loves this kind of stuff.
Yeah, she loves tragedy. She loves severe weather coverage. You know what Andrea misses more than anything, Ken? The baka ba baka ba. I'm going to go ahead and activate the KRMG Severe Weather Center. Yeah,
Depend on it.
she misses all of that. By the way, that was a different sound for Ken when he'd hear baka ba baka ba. That meant his audience was leaving because everybody
They were
left.
going to someplace else.
No, they all left KVO to come to us at KRMG.
Gotcha,
No, but she likes scary weather. When we had tornadoes, Andrew and I would get in the car and go to them. You know Chris Kroc, right? That fills in sometimes for me, and he's on in Dallas. Well, Chris was in Tulsa interviewing for a job, and just to show you how personable I am. I mean, I didn't put people up in hotels. They stayed at my house. So he and his wife are at the house, and all of a sudden the tornado sirens go off. Now, he's from Wisconsin, right? He's thinking, tornado, hit the deck. I remember when I was a kid, there was no scarier sound than the tornado siren. Growing up in Chicago, and then you'd wait to hear and see if they said Cook County. Because like a tornado was like the worst thing that could happen. And then, of course, after you live in Oklahoma for a while, it's a fun day. It's get in the car, go chase it, go find it, go look at it.
Or sit on your back porch and look at it.
So we're all loading the car, and he goes, "Well, where are you going? Aren't we supposed to go in like a basement?" I said, "No, we're going to find it." And then he got in the car and panicked the whole way. But but what are you fearing exactly?
So
that like
for
a
me-
wall's going to come down on you? What are you anticipating?
I have some trees that are on the tree line on the line of my property right next to my fence.
Well, you can tell she's a country girl. She calls it property. All right, I know. Your property.
Well, what
So-
else would it be? So
I
they,
say house, but my
my
yard,
home, my
house.
home, my yard, yeah.
That's your
All
piece.
right.
That's your piece of property. I bet you drive a
My
vehicle,
land.
and you drive a vehicle, don't you?
I do drive a vehicle.
I drive a car, but go ahead.
So the trees are lining it.
Why does he
and,
keep interrupting? Why doesn't he just let her talk? I liked it so much better when he was dying.
and you call yourself a Christian. So the trees are older, and the older limbs, which are huge.
You
I mean,
feel
they're-
like a spear. They're going to come through the wall
I
and
believe-
pierce your chest.
I think the trees might come down because the soil is so wet from all this rain, and you've got this high wind. I'm fearful that it's going to come crashing down onto my roof. Most of all, if that didn't happen,
Talk back with Bob Larson. How long has fear been your friend? Please, somebody.
fear is my demon.
By the way, when I'm talking to you, notice the static. By the way, this could be a Mac talk. I may have to explain to this young man. Long before you were a twinkle in the eye of your father, there was a time I was at Louisiana State University. I would skip class and rush home to listen to Talk Back with Bob Larson through the severe static.
Awesome.
And Bob would say, "Caller, you're on the air. What's your name?" And the demon would say something like, "Bill and Holenwall." "You're not Bill and Holenwall. What's your name, demon?" "Avon calling." "I don't wear makeup." "You're not Avon." "Demon, what is your name?"
This is all real, Mac. This is a real guy.
Knock, knock. "Who's there?" "Bob Larson." "You're not Bob Larson. You're a demon. What is your name?" "Legion."
Legion was the demon that loved Bob Larson the most.
"Legion, thanks so much for calling the show. Demon, what are you doing? I'm going to send you to the dark and dusty places." "I won't go to Murfreesboro." "Why are you insulting Murfreesboro?" "Too much linoleum."
There really is, isn't there, demon?
But there aren't many pigs.
But he would cast out the demons
Mac.
live on the air.
Look at
What?
Google Bob Larson.
Oh, it was so addictive. It was the most
Yeah.
addictive thing I ever. And every
Now,
day
he's
it'd be-
a little different
and then
now,
All of a sudden
but-
he'd be talking. Pam, tell him how it'd be more subtle. Like the girl would be talking, she'd be like, "And Bob, I just can't.
I can't
I'm just
get
like
rid of
I'm
it.
gripped in
I'm
fear."
oppressed. I'm
And then
oppressed.
all of a sudden, while Bob's talking to you, you hear,
"What's going on, ma'am?" "I'm hearing a growl." "Demon, identify yourself."
That's not a joke.
Unless not spaghetti.
I like
Whoa.
when the on hold music would play.
"Thank you for calling the pits of hell. We'll be with you as soon as possible. Stand by. A demon will join you momentarily. And thank you for your patience. Oh, by the way, if you don't have patience, that's a stronghold. See you Thursday." Talk Back with Bob Larson. I'm in the middle of a battle with a demon. I have a rock and roll band coming in about 30 minutes. But in the meantime, demon, what is your name and why are you embracing fear?
Somebody's going, "Michael, your fruit is showing and it's not pretty." Ah! Full circle. All right, so
Oh my goodness. Whew.
So you like
What a ride.
to embrace fear. So now you see
I don't embrace
trees
it.
coming through walls, hitting you right in the
I'm
chest.
just prepared just in case it does. So I've already called my insurance agent.
Oh,
I know
my
that my
God.
homeowner's insurance
You're out of
is
control.
paid up.
Seriously, I'm your big brother. Stop bothering people. You
And then-
called your insurance. What did you say? It's a wind advisory today. What all could go wrong? And am I covered?
No.
You got this guy digging through your policy.
Her name is Melissa, and I've known her for 30 years.
Oh, so she's
And
familiar with that you're crazy.
She is
Okay.
very familiar with the crazy. It's not crazy to be prepared. Look, we've been through this before. We went through this 2 years ago to the date today.
By the way, I
2
am
years
doing
ago.
serious severe weather coverage. A high wind warning is in
That's it.
effect, along with a tornado watch on this,
Yes.
what we will call the March 3rd storm of 2013. Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel is in town. Guys, where do you guess he'll stand?
Outside
standing-
Bridgestone looking for Morgan Wallen tickets.
I think he's going to stand right on Broadway with fiddles flying by.
He's actually on one of the rooftops of one of those bars down there.
So he's
Oh.
on
drunk.
Broadway.
He's drunk and stumblebum.
Well,
Sucking Colt 45
now
out of
you're
a can.
now you're begging me to backslide and talk about Shepard Smith during Katrina, drunk off as you know what.
Was he really?
Well, that's why we had
Brian Williams that was seeing bodies floating by in the French
Quarter that never saw any water because we directed all the flooding away from the
Right.
French Quarter.
right.
But in the case of Shepard Smith, he was drunk. He could have been seeing things. But all right, so Jim Cantori's on a building down on Broadway.
Yes.
You have your agent pouring through your coverage.
Just to make sure, what happens if the fence gets taken out by one of these trees?
Somewhere
what
Bob
happens
Larson,
if the roof?
somewhere Bob Larson is appearing at a hotel near an airport. That's so he can get the cash and make a quick getaway.
I did not know so he's here today.
No.
Oh,
But don't you remember when he came and you called me? You're like, we got to go see Bob Larson. Of course, he's always at like a hotel by the airport.
oh, yeah. He's in one of those hotel meeting rooms.
Yeah, but always near the
He doesn't
airport.
go to churches anymore.
Yeah,
So he can get a quick getaway. If he comes back this year, we have to go.
Is there? If you Google Bob Larson talking to demons, see if anything pops up.
I mean, on his Wikipedia, it's.
Well, no, but
debatable.
you got to find like an audio
the
because
videos?
yeah, okay.
and he was always on a low wattage station, so there was
like a
always
1000
static. Like if I
AM.
ever heard him crystal clear, it wouldn't have been the same. The static made it more eerie. Are you a Wiccan?
Yes, I heard static
Well,
a minute
that's
ago
true.
when
I
you were
like to
talking.
put sticks in the ground and see if they've been. That's Wiccan. That's begging for a demon. Talk back with Bob Larson. Bob made a good buck for a long time doing that stuff, talking to demons.
Exorcist Bob Larson faces demons. 5 strong men can barely tackle. I guess this is one of the headlines I see.
I mean, that was, back then in 1983, there wasn't talk radio like today. So, if you turned on the talk station, they could be doing swap shop, just nonsense. And I mean, when you think about it, Bob Larson was ahead of it. Now, he was doing demons instead of, entertaining commentary, but he was doing talk radio before everybody else.
Yeah, he really was.
It was an appointment. My roommate, Keith, would come home. He's now a pastor. And he'd go, are you kidding me? You skip class to listen to Bob Larson?
Oh,
and I'd go,
every day.
And I'd be like, Keith, you got to sit down. Judy's having some issues with her vocal cords. I think a demon's about to appear.
I worked at an FM station, it was an FM gospel station, 100,000 watts in North Carolina when I was young. And I talked because we needed something for overnight because every DJ he hired just wouldn't work overnights. So I talked the PD into running Talk Back with Bob Larson overnight because it's perfect.
Oh,
for
overnight. That'd be like, add to the eeriness.
And so he did that for years because he wasn't aware of it either. I'm telling you, AM radio, it's perfect. But if you're talking about overnight, holy moly.
Was that Larry King, right? And then after he'd cast the demon out of Judy, he'd say, coming up next hour, Ken from Murfreesboro, hearing noises in his attic now. We'll talk to him after this. I'm talking back with Bob
From the
Larson.
Davenport.
From the Davenport. By the way, did you say anything yesterday while we're here? Nobody's listening, but why did I start getting all these text messages from people like, are you okay?
No, I didn't. The only thing I said is you were under the weather and hopefully you'll be back tomorrow. That's all I said. And you're back.
Well,
you're no longer under the weather.
No, I feel the exact same today as I did yesterday. So I have the joy of walking around knowing I have clogged arteries and angina, but nobody's done anything about it. And I get to come blow into work and then blow out.
Blow.
All right, I'm going to talk. If I could take a second, I'm going to address that fear that you're living in. Pamela Furr, she's not just the nosy girl down the hall. She's the panic girl.
Pamela Fear.
At home, Pamela Fear is in the bathroom with a mattress over her.
Got the go bag ready.
Jim Cantori right now is going, how do I get to Hermitage? All right, Pam, get back under your mattress.
Right.
We wish you nothing but
Be
the best.
careful.
You be careful, Sister Pamela Furr.
Yes.
You can do like Pamela, and you can be gripped in fear, or like the rest of us, you can just be weather-wise and keep your radio close to Super
aware.
Talk. Is it weather-aware? What did I say, weather-wise?
Weather aware.
I got to learn all these slogans. All right, I correct myself. High wind warning, tornado watch in effect. Jim Cantori's wearing a helmet, straddling a building on Broadway. This could get interesting, folks. Don't touch that dial. It's 9:20. Oh, pain, pain, pain. Why doesn't it just go away? Well, it never does on its own. You have to be diagnosed and you have to be treated. Could be back pain, neck pain, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain. It's the kind of pain that you're dealing with from the moment you wake up if you're lucky enough to ever fall asleep. And then when you finally do, it's waiting for you the next morning. The part that nobody thinks about is all the things it's robbing us from doing. Well, at the Dr. Gill Center in Franklin, we know how to address pain. And it all begins with affordability. So for $23, your new patient appointment is covered. That's going to cover your extensive exam, any x-rays, any imaging, and your accurate diagnosis. So don't say you can't afford to find out what it is. Then once we know what it is, we're more than just a chiropractic office. We have state-of-the-art industry equipment, Class 5 lasers, red light therapy, spinal decompression therapy, a game changer, separation without a scalpel. But no one, including us, can do anything until you're diagnosed, and $23 covers it all. So don't do nothing. Never settle for a pill. Call the Dr. Gill Center. Brand new phone number. Make note of this. 882-4838. 882-4838. Stop living in pain. 882-4838 or online at callmepainfree.com.
Convicted double murderer Alex Murdaugh just learned his fate, and Devontae Hill, the man accused of killing a Nashville nurse while she was on her way to work in 2020, is going to learn his fate this morning. That nurse's mother on the stand right now. Details coming up at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, it never really looked good for the guy. You know, with a name that close to murder, you knew which way it was going to go. Why? You ever wonder as a news person why we pick certain cases, certain trials that we'll cover when they're going on every day?
I do.
And do you have an answer?
Well, this one is, this is a father who claims undying love for his son and his wife, who the evidence was just overwhelming that he murdered them. This family, which we have learned through this documentary, there has just been tragedy surrounding this family since like 2017.
Well, if you haven't had enough of it, he just got life. Dateline will feature that tonight. I wonder if it'll be Keith Morrison.
Hey, it very well might be Keith Morrison.
A family man of sorts, or was he?
And of course, there's on Twitter, you've got Juice, OJ, giving his thoughts.
Oh, I know.
I do love when OJ does a special murder video.
Yeah.
Give you that inside the courtroom analysis that only he can bring, along with some memorabilia.
Yeah.
So apparently Pam didn't say anything. So now I'm just kind of thinking, remember, Ken, every time I was out for whatever reason, everything would be a buzz. I got fired. And then Corey, the yard boy, would, gin it up.
Yes.
Yeah, he's fired. He's looking for a job.
He would.
I guess after 16 years, the assumption now is, no, I'm not fired, but I might be dead. Am I that old now that the assumption is no longer he's fired? It's, did he finally? Like, do you think there's somebody on the super text line really disappointed? I thought for sure he'd be dead today.
He's going to croak.
Well, for those of you who hate me, and I know you're not everyone, I've got some bad news. I did not, and I can confirm by way of EKG and by way of entrance blood work and exit blood work and enzymes that were absent, I did not have a heart attack yesterday. That's
good news, Brother Michael.
No, that's the bad news for them who hate me. The good news is I do leave with confirmed angina, probably caused by blocked arteries, headed for a scan, headed for a cardiac. There's still a chance I could die. Don't lose hope out there. You talk back with bobblers and reversers.
Rats.
Man, that's terrible news.
He's clinging. He looks a little ashen today. Maybe today's the day. I had another person on the super text line say they caught the reference. I was singing Keith Green, Rushing Wind Blow Through This Temple. When I think of the great, great wind songs, I mean, if today's focus is going to be all about wind, come on. There's no better. Well, we did Windy for, you got to turn on my computer. We did Windy for, what was the Windy for? Oh, that was when we were shooting down balloons.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, when it comes to storms and wind, you can beat the Imperials and let the wind blow. So, Ken, I know you've got your entire team on the streets. Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel, of course, is perched atop a Broadway building, a high wind advisory. Ken, from a news perspective, if you could help my sagging ratings and scare the crap out of some people, not just Pamela Fear, but for those that don't have the spirit of Pamela Fear, what are we worried about today? Cars blowing right off. By the way, can I tell you something really strange and serious? I'll dip the music for a second.
Sure, brother.
My new Nissan pops on and tells me you have high winds in the vicinity.
Yeah.
I've never had a car do that. And then it told me you have an over 40-mile-an-hour wind in this vicinity. I have never.
Crazy.
We've got that in our Rogue.
Well, that's what I have, a Nissan. I don't have the coexist bumper sticker, but we have the same car. See, that's how somewhere there was a Japanese guy. Now we just need wind advisory sensor. All right, so what are we fearing today? What's the actual news?
Well, the big thing is between 10 and noon for Nashville and then the adjacent communities, the counties right next to us. 10 to noon is going to be the time when there could be severe storms that could produce tornadoes. But outside of the storms, it is this high wind warning until 6 o'clock. Not necessarily the 30 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds. It's the gusts they're saying that could be up to 60 miles per hour. That's enough to blow over high profile vehicles. There's probably, they say definitely or likely power outages.
Yeah.
especially, because a lot
So
of lines are in trees.
What you're suggesting is when I get off the air at noon, I got to pull a Denzel Washington and flight. No autopilot today, right? I got to be flying.
10 and 2, brother. 10
All right, so
and 2.
10 and 2 for tornadoes till 6 for high winds. And, of course, you'll always get the latest right here as it's happening on Super Talk 99.7. WTN, it's 9:31. That's the weather. What's the news?
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we've got a problem, and it's a familiar one for folks trying to get to Nashville from Kentucky or even Robertson County. 65 southbound is closed. Guess where? Orlando, Portland, and Gallatin Cross Plains, right in between there. That is because of a tractor trailer that overturned and then burst into flames this morning, right there in some construction zones. And right now in South Carolina, convicted double murderer Alex Murdaugh, shackled and wearing a jail jumpsuit, was just led off to prison on 2 consecutive life terms for the murders of his wife and son. He showed no emotion as he was led away. And here in Nashville, Devontae Hill, the man accused of killing nurse Caitlin Kaufman in a road rage shooting in 2020, is in court for sentencing. Kaufman's mother on the stand right now for victim impact statements. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Preds last night in Miami beat the Panthers 2-1. They are now 30, 23, and 6. I know what you're thinking right away. That's their record. No. Out of a roster of 30, we got rid of 23 and 6 remain. But we did win 2-1, and we'll be at Chicago. See, the true Chicago people, they never said Chicago. They said Chicago.
It was
There's a ch. Taking on the Blackhawks. That'll be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Plenty of sausage. I don't care what your arteries are. Vols ranked 12th in the country. One final game, and then it's on to tournament play.
Here we go.
Auburn tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I may have to be watching that one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Vandy
good one.
beat Kentucky on Wednesday. I guess I wasn't here yesterday to tell you about that.
Well, that's one Tennessee team Kentucky can't beat.
Can't beat. Mississippi State will be their final game. That will be tomorrow at home at 7:30, and that is sports on the Talk Station. I mentioned they're going to have more on the Murdaugh trial on Dateline tonight. I guess we'll make that, or I don't want to commit any kind of mortal sin. There's also Blue Bloods on CBS. I may golf with Ralph on Sunday.
All right.
Or if you're looking for more sports, you miss football, combine.
What more?
Quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends tomorrow.
You're like my son, Nick. There's just
Ooh,
some
I
things
can't
I
wait for
won't
the-
do.
I
I will
love the
not
combine.
watch preseason baseball in February, early March. And I will not watch a bunch of men run. By the way,
I
after
love it.
Tom Brady bombed at the combine and went on to be the greatest quarterback,
Yeah,
the greatest
I mean-
player of all time, really, there's too much.
Grain of salt. I'd rather go to a combine than a Super Bowl. That's one weird thing about me.
You know what? You want to know how different we are? You know what I was thinking? Jackie Joyner Kersey is 61 years old today.
And could still outrun us.
Oh, are you kidding me? Well, actually, she'd outrun me because I clogged arteries in 60. But, I mean, I wonder how many, like a guy, like the fastest kid at Centennial High School.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the fastest kid at Centennial High School can still beat Jackie Joyner Kersey, even at 61.
That's insane.
61 years old, one of the greatest female track stars. By the way, if you've never seen that movie on, I want to say it was HBO, but maybe it wasn't. It's on the life of Jesse Owens. I think it's called, is it called Jesse or The Runner or The Race? I think it's called. What a sleeper. Great. In fact, not Galifianakis. Why do I got Galifianakis on my brain?
Between two ferns.
Yeah, I'm got between two ferns in my brain. I have a clogged brain, not artery. What's the guy that was in Ted Lasso? I love him. Sudeikis, not
Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah, Sudeikis.
Yeah.
Jason Sudeikis is in it. He plays the coach
Ooh.
at Ohio State, and the kid who plays Jesse Owens is just spectacular. And I mean, they don't pull any.
American Experience?
No,
Jesse Owens?
I think it was called like The Race or something. It came on in like in the
Oh,
middle.
yeah, Race.
The Race,
Race,
yeah.
Race.
Oh, let me tell you something. Let me give you a pick to click on that. If you're going to the theater, I know a lot of you are thinking about Cocaine Bear. You really need to see the Jesus Revolution. It's Kelsey Grammer was on the Tonight Show joking about that. Well, you got two choices: Jesus or the Cocaine Bear. Either way, you're leaving out. But I highly recommend the Jesus Revolution on the big screen and that movie Race. the Jesse Owens story and everything that was going on with Hitler and Nazi Germany at the time, and a lot of drama with Jesse, too. But what a great runner he was. I highly recommend that. Jackie Joyner Kersey, 61 today. Julie Bowen she was originally in that movie, the golf one, with Adam Sandler. Was that?
Oh, you're talking about
not Madison. What was the one where he's the golfer?
Happy Gilmore?
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everybody knows her from Modern Family.
Yeah,
She's
great
just
Modern Family.
Very funny, beautiful woman, 53 years old today. Jessica Biel from right here in the Middle Tennessee area, wife of Justin Timberlake, 41 years old. And Camila Cabella, who I think is very talented. Her and Dua Lipa, I think, are the two real talents of this day. Camila Cabella, 26 years old today. Happy birthday if it's your birthday. That's television. That's birthdays. That's sports. It's 9:36. The news was brought to you by... Got a text from Red. Signs you know you have a problem. He said he was watching some show the other day and it was doing sports gambling and they were discussing the XFL. And he said, that's when it dawned on me. If you're betting on the XFL, you've got a gambling problem. That's what I said about my nephew, when he was doing cricket from the middle of the night in India.
Yeah, that's worse.
And I said, at the point oh, no, you don't understand. These guys are really good. I was like, oh, well, okay. But I think at the point you're betting cricket, you got a problem.
It's rough.
Whether it's $5 a game or $500 a game.
Yeah.
I think you're betting cricket in India, you got a problem. Yeah, I guess XFL would be a problem in gambling. All right, at 9:38, we do have already windy conditions, cloudy skies. There is some light rain in the area. We're bracing for a really tough stretch between 10 and noon for potentially severe weather and tornadic activity. So, we may be having some fun in between, but don't go too far. If anything hits the fan, we'll be the first to tell you about it. Right now, 69 in Franklin, 69 in Mount Juliet, 69 in the borough. Downtown on Music Road, cloudy, windy, 70, feels like 70 at Super Talk 99.7 WTM. Well, if you have a VA loan, in this housing market, homeowners with VA loans have access to a ton of instant cash. I'm Michael DelGiorno, and I'm here to tell you Loan Pronto can help. If you need cash to pay off high-interest credit card debts, or high-interest loans for that matter, how does a check for 80 or 90 grand sound right now? Loan Pronto is helping our veterans every day get the money they need with a quick and easy zero-cost cash-out refi. With the zero closing costs, zero cost, cash refi, with a VA loan, what's really cool is you can access up to 100% of your home's value, and some of your homes have gone up tremendously in value. You can access that money, use it to pay off credit cards, home equity lines of credit, consolidate all your payments into one payment, free up cash flow to afford inflation, get rid of high-interest debt heading into recession. It's just plain smart to do. And most homeowners who end up cutting their overall monthly payments, it's by $800 or more a month. Loan Pronto's all-digital process makes it so easy for our vets. They're doing loans with super low APRs right now, lower than you think. And we love working with our veterans. So what are you waiting for? 499-5780. Call Loan Pronto today, 499-5780. That's 499-5780. Online at loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender and MLS 166-1781. Subject to lender approval. I know there's a lot of gambling around us, and I think if you're gambling on the XFL, you have a real problem. Now, I do like Centennial -2 against Ravenwood later this weekend. That's not going to. 9:45 in the morning at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I was reading it. I can't remember where. It may have been MSN. I don't know. And they were one of the few to bring up something that I should know. I got to Chicago in 1970, I believe, and we left in 1978. So I lived there quite a bit. And then, once you live somewhere, you kind of follow the happenings. When I lived there, the original Richard Daley was still mayor. I should have caught this, and I have to admit I didn't. So, the whole discussion is what happened to Mayor Lightfoot. Well, identity politics threw her into office. After all, she was a woman. She was a woman of color, and she was a lesbian woman of color. That certainly played well for identity politics. What ousted her? Well, we often have conversations. Lies have an expiration date when the truth arrives. Darkness has a dawn or a sunrise, if you will, and that's when light arrives. And some of these narratives and political agendas, they have an expiration date too. And that's when consequence arrives. And that's what you're seeing in our cities. They're simply too unsafe to do business in. Thus, they're too safe to have employees live near. Thus, they leave. So it becomes a real crisis, a crisis that can no longer afford typical partisan narrative nonsense. You understand, most of the nonsense comes along and like we used to call them first world problems versus third world problems. When you have those luxuries, whether it's your personal life or corporately, all of us together, when some serious crap hits the fan, you focus on the serious crap, and a lot of this nonsense takes a back seat. We always use the analogy, a guy at war is smoking a cigarette. He doesn't worry what's on the side of that Marlboro pack. He's got mortar shells coming at him. Things like global warming, that's a convenience. Things like, demonizing police, that's a convenience. When citizens don't feel safe, consequences arrived. But this particular story was brilliant, and I normally don't read directly, but come on, I didn't write it, and they deserve the credit. So this is David Graham doing an op-ed piece, and he brings up something very, very smart. Pity the poor mayors, or don't. Most voters clearly don't. On Tuesday, Chicagoans unceremoniously kicked Lori Lightfoot to the curb, depriving her of a chance to win a second term in an April 4th runoff election. This is the paragraph that I can't believe I missed. It is so true. Being mayor of Chicago, that used to almost be a lifetime appointment. Richard Daley, Harold Washington, both died in office. Richard Daley's son, Richard M. Daley, served 22 years before retiring. Until Lori Lightfoot, only one mayor in the past 75 years had been denied re-election. And she's not the only U.S. mayor in jeopardy. Also this week, New Orleans went to court to put a recall together against Mayor Cantrell. Being mayor in a big city has become a nearly impossible and miserable job. Who knows why Lightfoot even wanted to keep the job? But I hadn't thought about that. In that, number one, Richard Daley, oh my gosh, decades preceded Kennedy. I hadn't thought about that. You can't read enough into this story. And it's so clearly this topic. Now, she was saying it was going to be the most diverse city ever. Then she came forward and said it was going to be the abortion capital of the world. All these other crazy agenda and narratives. But the defund police, dismantle police, demonize police in favor of glorifying the true victim, the criminals. Boy, did that blow up in her face. And boy, did that show her the door quickly, unlike any other mayor prior to her. But then you go back to the headline, which is big cities are ungovernable. And I think this guy gets it right, except they could be governable. They're not ungovernable. It's not impossible to govern a big city, but you got to have priorities. I've often said since I got here, and that's been my mantra for 16 years. The questions we don't ask. You don't get the right answers unless you ask the right questions. And the right question is, what is the proper size and role of the federal government? What is the role of the self-governed individual? What is the proper size and role of a state? What is the role of the citizens and the responsibility of the citizens of those states? And you can do that for counties. You can do that for municipalities. And I got news for you. There is one they all have in common. Whether you're a municipality, whether you're a county, whether you're a state, or whether you're the federal government, the protection of your people, law and order, and security always comes first. It's always fully funded first. It's always prioritized first. Now, depending on where you're at, you may get to education second, or you may get to infrastructure, roads, and bridges. But that should always, the fact that our interest is higher than our defense budget, the fact that our entitlement budget, our welfare is now exceeding our defense. When you have wrong priorities, countries can get ungovernable in a hurry, let alone big cities. The good news, what I always tell you, sooner or later, the agendas and the narratives and the lies all get exposed by the truth, or ignorance is only bliss until consequence arrives. It's arriving in big cities. And isn't it amazing? We're not getting strange election outcomes. The obvious is happening. That's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. The problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
All right, north of Nashville in Robertson County, you still have 65 southbound closed between Orlando, Portland, and the Gallatin Cross Plains exit for that overturned tractor trailer that burst into flames when it crashed. And the National Weather Service has just updated the timeline for storms with the potential to spawn tornadoes. Looks like now 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. here for Nashville and the immediate surrounding area. All this and the top stories coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, it's already the worst time to come to work is my shift. Today it's the worst time to go home.
It's a double whammy, Brother Michael.
So what you're saying is there's a good chance I could get sucked up into a funnel and thrown to my front door. Nice. Yeah, because we were originally saying, 10 to noon?
Yeah, it was 10
for the
to
severe
noon.
thunderstorms and potential tornadic activity. Now that's been moved to 11 to 1, so the storm is obviously slowed down. Don't forget, for the wind, that damage, you got to keep your eye out and fingers crossed until about 6 tonight. Believe it or not, Ken, after that, a beautiful weekend.
I know.
Saturdays I love, and I'm embarrassed to admit it. I can't say it out loud.
Well,
I have a mani-pedi.
Oh,
But, and then we had a new
Gosh.
painting at a painting commission. This guy's down in, I think he's in Brazil. What an artist. And so Andrew and I have always loved the notion of downtown Paris on a very cold and wet day with, the shops and then the Eiffel Tower in the background. So we had a painting commission. We're going to finally get a chance to see it's arrived in America. So I got big plans, but it'll be nice and cool on Saturday. Sunday is the day we're planning to golf. Sunny and 71. So we just got to hunker down. If you're like Pam, you're under a mattress in a bathroom right now. If you're like the rest of us, we're singing, the Imperials, Let the Wind Blow. But some pretty nasty weather is about to begin in the next 60 minutes. We're keeping our eye out for wind and tornadic conditions, and severe thunderstorms. I have a bit of a theme kind of developing in the show, and that is you're not out there winning any big elections. You're not out there winning any big debates. Just suddenly consequences arriving. And ignorance is only bliss until consequence arrives. We're about to see that with President Joe Biden and a woke Christian school in Kansas City. That's all after the news, which is now.
It is 10 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And again, north of Nashville, Robertson County, southbound 65 is closed between Orlando, Portland, and Gallatin Cross Plains exit due to an overturned truck that caught fire. We still have a tornado watch until 1 o'clock for Middle Tennessee, but now the timing for the risk of severe weather has shifted a little bit here for the immediate Nashville area. It will be from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. A level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather. The high wind warning, that's until 6 o'clock for gusts up to 60 miles per hour. Right now in South Carolina, convicted double murder Alex Murdaugh, shackled and wearing a jail jumpsuit, just learned he's going to prison on 2 consecutive life terms for the murders of his wife and son.
That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections. And officers may carry forth on the imposition.
Murdaugh showed no emotion as he was led away. And right now in Nashville, Devontae Hill, the man convicted of killing nurse Caitlin Kaufman in a road rage shooting in 2020, is in court for sentencing. Hill faces up to 25 years in prison, but Kaufman's mother, during victim impact statements, pleaded with the judge for more.
My hope, Your Honor, is that you will enforce the law to the fullest extent. And if there were any way to rebuke the jury's decision, I would ask that you consider a life sentence for Mr. Hill.
Last month, the jury found Hill guilty of second-degree murder. The other person charged in the case, James Cowan, who was driving that night, the vehicle Hill was in, was acquitted. And war on Ukraine, U.S. officials say the Biden administration will announce a new $400 million package of military aid for Ukraine today. This time it will include some new equipment meant to help soldiers on the ground. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
All right, currently at 10:07, we do have cloudy skies, windy conditions. 70 at the Puffy Muffin in Brentwood, 70 to the north in Hendersonville. It's 71 downtown, feels like 71 in Nashville at WTN. The market, Dow's up 135. We're now at 33,138. You realize another 900, we're back to a correction on our losses from a couple of weeks ago. NASDAQ up 121. The S&P is up 32 so far. The wind is blowing the market up. All three are in the green. The market is up at 10:07. I'm Michael DelGiorno for Blue Umbrella Medical of Middle Tennessee. Dr. Jay Hitson and her team of talented physicians, including MDs, are different. Number one, we know you're frustrated. We know you're getting no answers, and we know you're getting no relief, and we're different. You're going to notice the advanced state-of-the-art lab testing because we want to give you the real answers you're looking for. Then you're going to notice some very sophisticated diagnostic equipment. That's to go beyond the answers to the root cause. Then we treat that root cause with very sophisticated, cutting-edge regenerative treatments, and they bring actual relief for a change. That's why the slogan is actual healthcare with real results. It's a novel idea, and it works for neuropathy. Acute, chronic, crippling, a lot of you are getting nowhere. We're treating these root causes with cutting-edge treatments that are stimulating, reactivating, and regenerating the damaged tissue and nerve endings, and that brings relief and lasting relief. And it's all covered by insurance and begins with an initial free consultation. So you got nothing to lose but pain, nothing to gain but hope and pain-free living. Innovative, integrative health solutions. That's Blue Umbrella Medical Center of Middle Tennessee. Set up your free consultation today. 610-6937, 610-6937. Online, learn more at bluumbrellamedical.com. Well, there's no getting around it. The top story today is clearly the weather, and the two windows to really consider is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. for very severe thunderstorm activity and possible tornadic activity. It was originally expected between 10 and noon. Now we're saying more 11 to 1. That's just God's way of saying, if I can't get him with a heart attack, I'll shoot for a tornado on his drive home. Meanwhile, we've got this high wind warning in effect, and that's going to remain until 6. So some pretty nasty weather to dodge today, and then really, quite frankly, a delightful weekend to enjoy once we get through it. I got this off the Super Text hotline. This particular individual has a, where did it go? I think it's a 2000 Ram, something like that. 2018 Ram. And he's got the same thing. Like I was driving to work today, and all of a sudden this notice, I just bought a Nissan Rogue from Nissan Cool Springs. And I've never noticed that with my BMW. It came on and warned me of high winds.
Really, your BMW doesn't do that?
I don't remember it ever doing that. Maybe I just...
Maybe in a different spot or something.
But it literally told me over 40-mile-an-hour winds are in my vicinity. So I thought that was interesting, and apparently it's not just a Nissan thing. His is happening. Speaking of Nissan, by the way, I got this, too. Good morning, Michael. This is Hubie at Nissan of Cool Springs. Cam came into my office, saw me watching you on Super Talk TV. He wanted me to say hello. Well, that's nice of him. He super texts me. Cam just bothers me on the tech. Great people at Nissan Cool Springs. About 3 cars in 1 month.
It's got to be a record.
Yeah, at least I gained a listener out of the whole thing. Today's theme is really quite interesting, and I can't stress it enough. You know, there's a lot of different things. I'm a pretty straightforward guy, whether you're a Jesus freak or not. America's abandonment of not just traditional Judeo-Christianity as it informs your worldview, your values, your rules for values, beliefs, your ability to self-govern. That was a pretty key abandonment. And then we abandon absolute truth. Nothing is absolutely right. Nothing is absolutely wrong. Nothing is absolutely true in favor of a theory of moral relativism or universalism, that all gods ultimately lead to the same, but they don't. And nobody likes to talk about that, especially on secular talk radio, but that's a big part of the problem because you never abandon something without replacing it. So, you know, and certainly our God is very gracious. He, you know, look at the story of the prodigal son. The father didn't stop him. You have free will. You can free will your way to hell. You can free will your way to believing there is no hell. That is your choice, and nobody is shoving God down your throat in this conversation. But it does have consequences. And as humans, we were created by a creator that you reject and a story you reject, but that doesn't change that you were designed to fill these voids with things. See, whether you believe in God or whether you believe in truth or not, you still have a desire to understand your purpose, the meaning of your life. And if it's not God, you'll try to fill it with something else. Could be drugs, could be women, adultery, could be global warming, could be multiculturalism, could be new tolerance, which is basically intolerance in the name of tolerance. And so for those that believe in traditional Judeo-Christian values, things that used to allow us to be self-governing, things that used to inform our government, inform our Constitution with a desire to protect those things for you and keep government out of your life, that all breaks down too. William Federer is a great author. I say this because I like guys that get right to the point and write short books. Because even if you have a long book, at the end of the day, there's only so much your brain is going to retain. And it's going to file it with a thesis. We were talking about Why Revival Tarries the other day by Leonard Ravenhill. Now, that's a very, very significant book. And for those of you that want to know why revival doesn't just be a constant existent within the body of Christ, well, read that book. And it's as simple as if you're unholy, God's not there. Now, there are people that go through revivals in a dead church, but that's just individual. Why aren't we seeing widespread revival within the church? Unholiness. The more your church doesn't look like the church in the book of Acts, the less likely revival is. Now, that's a very heady, in-depth book by a brilliant prophet, but that's about all my brain could store from it. And so William Federer writes these books that get right to the point. His History of Taxation, right to the point. You don't need to go any longer than that. It was the first wrong step, and we've taken giant leaps since. But he wrote a book one time, Even If You Reject God, What's in It for You in a Nation Under God? And it's an eye-opener. So many, you may reject God, but so many of the things of God you love. And without them, you won't like where you end up. So we look at our culture and we say, oh my gosh, what a mess. We look at if you're looking at it from a political standpoint, you look at your political adversaries and you say, oh my God, I can't even talk to these people. They're nuts. They can't figure out what bathrooms to go to. They got men boxing women in the name of transgenderism, trampling on feminism. They're a mess. You can't live in their cities without getting shot or abducted. And it's true. And you think there's got to be something that can defeat it, but we can't defeat them because they're cheating and fixing elections. If that's your point of view, it's not necessarily my complete point of view. How are we ever going to restore this thing? Well, welcome to today's show. I'm giving you all examples of not the right defeating the left defeating itself. Let me say that again in case you miss it. Every story I have today is no big victory of the right beating the left. It's the left beating itself. Why? Because the luxury of their agenda, the luxury of their narrative is taking a back seat to the consequence it's created. If you live in a city or your job is in a city where you don't feel safe, this kind of crap nonsense doesn't make a whole lot of sense anymore. Somebody's just texted, go into your thoughts on becoming holy. I can do that. There are some things. Every day I dance a fine line of what I actually believe and I would defend before management and before corporate leaders is relevant to the discussion of understanding the news and culture today. And then there are things that are going too far, and they really do belong in a podcast or on a religious station or from a pulpit. Probably more appropriate to have me visit your church and speak than it is to do it on the air. But holiness, you can Google. When you are separate unto God, when God is the number one priority and the number one driving force in your life, it is the essence of your being. Your sinful nature takes a back seat. Your urges take a back seat. God is first and foremost on your mind and your thoughts. He is the passion of your life and becoming, and which is really dying to self and allowing to live through you, creates a holiness, not a holiness that comes from the law, a holiness that comes from not acts of devotion, but a life and a heart of devotion. But that's another topic. But sticking to what is fair game to talk about, and that is these stories, because they're all dying of consequence. So yesterday, while I was making sure I wasn't dying of a heart attack, Democrats started having heart attacks. Why? President Joe Biden surprised, this is CNN talking, President Joe Biden surprised Democratic senators Thursday when he told them that he won't veto a GOP-led legislation to rescind a controversial Washington, D.C. crime law. A move that comes as Democrats are divided over the contentious issue and Republicans are aggressively accusing them of being soft on crime. I can't tell you how many times, if I had $1 for every time I said it, if you just go back and watch the last Democratic National Convention, all you're going to hear is COVID is Trump's fault, not China's fault. He's responsible for the deaths and must be punished. All election laws should be changed to make it easy to mail in your vote, and they didn't go through legislature, so it was unconstitutional. Call it a cheating, not even fair and square. And that's the whole, other than that, all they were talking about are all bad guys are good and all good guys, cops are bad. Cops are the bad guys. They must be defunded. They must be dismantled. And the bad guys, well, they're just victims. We have systemic racism and bad cops. Well, how's that worked out for you? Now, we've already seen Lightfoot get the axe, but it's not stopping there. And right away, you're seeing Joe Biden changing his tune. You know, Kamala Harris was talking about the border and crimes against humanity, only to get caught doing the same thing with Joe Biden. They were all bragging about good trouble in the streets. Go back and watch the DNC convention. The rioting, the burning of cop cars, the burning of police stations, the destroying of businesses, the harming of individuals in the streets and homes and neighborhoods. Oh, that was good trouble. That's not rioting. That's good trouble. That's protesting. Looked a hell of a lot more violent and out of control than anything that happened on January 6th, I might add. And January 6th, the only person that died was one of the protesters shot by Capitol Police. Still no explanation on why they shot an unarmed woman. Now, all of a sudden, there was no big victory in an election. There was a Democratic primary that got rid of Lightfoot. This is consequence arriving. This is them defeating themselves. I go back to the prodigal son analogy. The father could have said no. And if you leave, that's it. You're out of the family. He let him go. It didn't take long for consequence to arrive. And then he came back. The Democrat Party is destined to fail because its policies are failed. Its worldview is failed. And it's happening all around them. Now, I will tell you this, and I think it's what I ended the hour with, the most interesting question. Isn't it amazing you head into Chicago where you can see this woman's dead meat for everything she's done to make her city a violent, deadly place? And she was. Less than 20% of the vote, she's gone. In a city where most mayors stay mayor until they die, she's gone after one term. That's what happens when you get a real election without a lot of shenanigans. The obvious happens. The polls come true. But all of this is a very encouraging thing. It's nothing you defeated. It's just time and consequence. Lies always die, and the cause of death is always truth. Darkness always loses, and the victor is always light. And for bad agendas and bad policies, it always loses. And the cause of death? Consequence. We're seeing it all around us. From President Joe Biden to the mayor of Chicago, outgoing Lightfoot, to a Christian school in Kansas City. That's our next stop.
All right, still got that big traffic problem north of Nashville. 65 southbound is shut down for an overturned truck that caught fire between Orlando, Portland, and the Gallatin Cross Plains exit. That's a 45-minute delay. Then the alternate route is now delayed by 20 minutes. It's stop-and-go traffic, Highway 31 southbound between Highway 52 and 25. Right now, looking at radar, we've got some heavy rain just to the west of Nashville, moving this way. We are under a tornado watch until 1 o'clock, but something interesting has developed from what I'm looking at radar. It looks like we're in for 2 rounds of what could be potentially severe weather. So we'll watch that. We'll update you and get you the top stories coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, I got this off the Super Text hotline. Michael, I'm a teacher who got out of school today. You know, that's a stopping point right there, isn't it? Why is it when we have severe weather, and I'm all for it, I don't want our kids in harm's way, and that includes teachers with them. But it's funny how radio works. It's when weather is most likely to be dangerous that we get our messages to make sure we're at work. Right? You know?
Yeah.
Why? Seriously, I know teachers get a bad break because it's so easy to lump. You can get a woke school, and I'm about to do one that's going to make this teacher's hair curl in a minute. Or you have a bad exam. When I look back at teachers, I mean, I had 1 or 2 really bad ones. Elliot Levine led to me losing my baseball scholarship, and I don't regret anything I did to him. I only regret I got pulled off of him. But I can't tell you how many teachers changed my life that were wonderful and influenced me. David Federico changed my life. He taught me to learn and love learning. My coach, Frank Loria, led me to Jesus Christ through a Bible study. I mean, teachers are the greatest. I find myself encouraged. You know, my daughter, you know, she's thinking about nursing, and one's thinking about being a veterinarian, and I get that. I love animals more than people. But I've got one daughter that thinks about nursing. You can't go wrong with that. And she's going to a school that's very good at placing people in nursing. But I'm like, man, you know, what do our kids need more than anything? We need godly, good teachers that'll really love them. You don't know if they're getting loved at home. You don't know if they're getting any assistance in learning at home. I mean, teaching, I've always viewed teaching like law enforcement, firefighting. I think it's a vocation. You shouldn't be in it for the money. You're in it for the lives you're going to impact and change forever. So
it's a calling.
Yeah.
Yes.
So first and foremost, thank you. Secondly, after 20 years, you're vested, you get a nice little pension, don't you? And if the weather gets a little gnarly and your car doesn't warn you of wind, your superintendent does and says, stay home. It's a good gig. And he says, Michael, I'm a teacher. I'm out of school today, really enjoying hearing you. Usually I only get to hear you during Christmas break. I feel like I need to be shopping. Oh, okay. Then he said,
Yeah. Then ends the text.
Then he said something else that's about another host, so I won't go there. But thank you for listening, teachers. And in particular, teachers, for this story that's coming up. I can't encourage you enough in the I had somebody call me, and I would never dare say who, or emailed me last night. And if life is a hand of cards, he just got a really bad hand. I mean, my worst nightmare hand. What are you going to say to somebody going through that? Don't give them these empty words and gestures. Tell them, oh my gosh, that's awful. Your fear is reasonable. Your hopelessness is understandable. But I encouraged him, when it seems like God's nowhere to be found, I assure you he is there. You're not feeling him, but he's there. And your lack of peace can be exchanged. It is a reasonable lack of peace. Your anger, your lack of peace, the news you got, that's reasonable. But there is a peace that exists that's beyond understanding. When you run out of fight, there is a conqueror in you in Christ. So all I could say is, from start to finish, I'm going to be here for you. From start to finish, when you lack courage, I'm going to have it. From start to finish, I have nothing that says I can control the outcome on earth. I've studied scriptures my entire life. If there's any promises on earth, it is death. It is suffering. But I can assure you that simultaneously, when we have the perspective of the other side, it'll have a different view. And that's where God nature comes in, and it can't be defiled. Whatever's happening may really look unjust, but it'll be justified eternally. The mercy will be there. The grace will be there. The victory will be there. But a lot of these things in life that we think we got to fight and defeat, we really don't. We just have to guard our heart and mind and protect ourselves from being deceived. As far as the deceived, their day will come. They will reap what they sow. Let me take you to a school in Kansas City and tell you exactly what I'm talking about. Because of all of our stories today, they basically prove one thing. These are not enemies to be defeated. These are people flawed, living lies, agendas, and narratives that are failed faith, failed worldview, failed policy views, and the clock is ticking on the final score, consequence. That's what's happening at stake more than anything. I'll encourage you with a school in Kansas City that's not feeling very encouraged right now next.
.10:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And right now, a very heavy line, or I should say a line of very heavy rain stretching from Kentucky all the way down deep into Alabama is just west of Nashville. And it is slowly creeping this way. Clarksville got a super texter telling us they're getting hammered with some heavy rain right now. Radar does indicate that. Radar indicates 2 lines of very heavy rain, which have the potential to turn into severe storms, possibly spawning tornadoes. We are under a tornado watch all of Middle Tennessee until 1 o'clock. Right now in Nashville, Devontae Hill, the 23-year-old man convicted of the 2020 road rage killing of nurse Caitlin Kaufman, faces up to 25 years in prison when he is sentenced today. And in South Carolina, convicted double murderer Alex Murdaugh is headed to prison for 2 consecutive life terms for the shooting deaths of his wife and son. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these 2 activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
right, I have the color weather radar. And I can tell you that we originally thought between 10 and noon was going to be a really rough time. Then they kind of extended it to 11 to 1. Ken, I'm not so certain it's not noon to 2 now. So you're going to start getting some of the outer bands of the showers around 1. Then the heavy first wave comes through around 2 with the second wave right behind it at 3 o'clock. These are north and south covering the entire listening audience. Somewhat thin, but bands of very, very heavy thunderstorms passing west to east. And again, I'm just going by the way the app shows it moving. I would think 1 to 2 is when the rain begins with that first band of severity, and then probably 2 to 3 is that's closer to that second band coming through. This is the heavy thunderstorm that we're worried about tornadic possibilities. So tornado watch is in effect. We're looking for these 2 bands to pass through. Probably should be out and past us by 4. In the meantime, the high wind warning is in effect until 6. So some pretty nasty weather to keep our eye on, and a pretty good reason to keep listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTM. 70 in Franklin this hour, 71 in Mount Juliet, 72 in the borough, cloudy and windy, 71 downtown. It feels like 71. The market's doing good. Dow's up 183 at 33,186. NASDAQ's up 129 at 11,591, and the S&P's up 36 at 4,017. All three are in the green. The market is up at 1036. Why do I choose Zero Res? Traditional cleaners will come and clean your carpets, and they'll clean them. But they're going to use chemicals, shampoos, and detergents. And when they leave, the residue is going to stay on your carpet fiber, and it kind of acts like a dirt magnet. It literally gathers dirt more quickly, and you'll feel it. It's crunchy under your feet. Zero Res arrives with science-empowered water. A better way to clean. A better way to remove stains and odors. To get insanely clean carpets, and without the residue, they stay cleaner longer. That's value. And our price, it's tough to beat. Our March offer right now, if you want to go beyond spring cleaning to Zero Resifying, 3 rooms and a hallway, just $129. 3 rooms and a hallway, $129. And, of course, without the residue, they'll stay cleaner longer. You'll pay more for 1 room elsewhere. Also, 20% off air duct cleaning as we head into allergy season as well. Zero Res, the right way to clean. Take advantage of these great March savings. Call 535-9376 today. 535-9376. That's 535-9376. Or if it's more convenient, book your appointment online at ZeroResNashville.com. I think that's called a progression, isn't it? A guitar riff like that, that's a progression, isn't it? I try to talk.
It definitely sounds like a progressive rock band.
My son's all into music, and he knows all the particulars. And so I'll go, that's an octave change. No, Dad, that's a dynamic change. I don't know what any of this stuff is. I got daughters that are, well, of course, I do know nursing. I did that for 3 years, didn't I?
You did indeed, Brother Mike.
Yes, I did. ICU training. All right, I'm getting reports about some of that hard rain now in the Robertson County area around Springfield, and that would be those outer bands. Trust me, it gets actually worse, and it's going to get worse. But we have 2 bands coming through. We're going to keep an eye on the weather for you, I promise. All right, so if we have a theme of anything today, it's that we're seeing change, and it's not anything that we defeated. You know, I wrestle with this, and I've wrestled with how to say it. But, you know, I just know that we're called to be light. So what is our call to action? Well, I'm not diminishing that your call may be to contact your representative, contact your senators. But by and large, your calling, your highest calling, here's something a pastor has probably never told you. This is the most difficult thing about Christianity, and this is the highest call of Christianity, being godly in the midst of an ungodly world. That's how I would say it. And if you're doing that, you're doing all you can. But there's no holy war to wage or taking up of arms to fight until victory. A lot of these lies, a lot of these deceptions, a lot of these narratives, a lot of these agendas, they'll die on their own front. They'll die of consequences. So we've had 3 great examples today. Crime in our inner cities. We've seen it in Chicago with the results of an unprecedented. Mayor leaving after one term. It's only happened, I believe, twice in 100 years. Most mayors in Chicago stay till the casket arrives, like U.S. senators. Lightfoot quadrupled down on woke agendas, not the least of which was defund and dismantle police. And her city's unlivable, and she's gone. Joe Biden doing the same thing in Congress, siding with Republicans in the Senate, to a lot of his own party's dismay. But this dismantle, defund. All cops are bad, all good guys are good. It's over. It died of consequences. Here's another example on the woke front. Headline: Christian school that embraced the LGBTQ community is forced to close its doors. Now, you're going to see there are some reasonable actions here. You're probably wondering, what's a Christian school going all in on LGBTQ? How dare, no, they have every right to try it. And it's empty, and it's closing. Follow the story. This comes to us. A conflict over what it means to be a Christian is forcing a school in Kansas City, Missouri to close. This is a great concept, by the way, which I hope reopens and stays focused in truth. That's ultimately what will set people free and prepare them for higher education and prepare them for the workforce. But an urban Christian academy, it's a private K-8 school, had an enrollment of 100. That's not that great a shakes. We're talking about 12, 14 students a grade. And it described itself as providing a tuition-free, high-quality, Christ-centered education for low-income students. Let's just stop right there and let's talk about how glorious that is as an idea, as an execution. That's Christianity. We don't need another church. Go into the most dangerous neighborhoods. Go into the poorest neighborhoods. Come in there in Jesus' name with Jesus followers' money and provide a private school that will disciple them, will educate them, and will bust the cycle of poverty. And with character, send them to higher education. I'm doing this. Well, I've done it. She's graduated. But I did this with a girl in Haiti. In the pits of voodoo hell and poverty, Haiti. My adopted daughter, she ate for 15 years. She got educated for 15 years. That's how you make a difference. I don't need a government. I don't need a pandering politician. And believers, you don't need another campus. So, first of all, I'm 2 paragraphs into this story, and I'm loving this concept. It was multiple churches, but they got together, and they created this school in an urban area. And these kids learned about Jesus, not drugs and gangs. They learned reading, writing, arithmetic, and they were ready for tests, and they were ready for higher education, and they were ready for the workforce. That's a great concept in and of itself. Here's how they described themselves on their website a few years back. A tuition-free, high-quality, Christ-centered education for low-income students. Boy, that's making a difference. The school's mission statement has always stressed inclusivity in general terms, noting that following Jesus opens up doors and makes room at the table. See, I was never intimidated by sin. I would find people lost and in sin, hopeless, drug addicts, contemplating suicide, everywhere. And they came as they were. And my business was to love them. My business was to invite them. My business was to stand beside them. God's business was the results. But something happened with this great idea in Kansas City. Last year, it added a paragraph to its website. It read in part, "We are an affirming school. We stand with the LGBTQIA." By the way, somebody's got to tell me what lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer. I don't even know what IA is, do we? What is the IA? Ken doesn't know. Mac, you're young. You're supposed to stay up on all this.
Eh.
And then there's the plus for whatever could be coming.
Maybe that's what the IA is, plus.
No.
Oh, no, wait, the plus is now behind the IA.
It's after the IA. So
Goodness.
IA is something.
Good grief.
Now I'm going to call up
is
the super
A-
text hotline and see if anybody else knows.
Is the A asexual?
That would be my guess. Okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right, so what's I? Invisible. I don't believe you can see me. I don't know. I can't keep up with them all. Anyway, so they go, we are an affirming school. We stand with the LGBT. Now we've gone from standing with Jesus to standing with the LGBTQIA plus community.
Intersex.
Intersex. What is that?
I have no idea, and I'm not seeing what the A is for.
It's got to be asexual, doesn't it? Although, why would asexual be? What does asexual have in common with all these?
Yep, asexual. You are correct.
And intersexual?
Intersex.
I'll only have sex on the interstate.
Oh, okay. Person born with a combination of male and female biological traits.
Oh my God, what's the percentage of that?
Yeah, that's got to be, exactly.
Didn't we call it, wasn't that an Aphrodite or something? I can't. Listen, I can't keep up with all this. All right. But anyway, follow the story. The story's fascinating. We are not, so suddenly now they're an affirming school that stands with the LGBTQI plus community and believe in its holiness. Boom. Remember the question on the super text line an hour ago about what is holiness? All right. So again, if you're out there listening and you're gay, don't be uncomfortable hanging around me. You just be yourself. That's between you and God, and it's none of my business. I will be more than respectful. I will be more than tolerant. I will be more than loving. What I won't do is biblically validate. I can't. This is a school that took the extra leap, and look at the wording. They're now believing lesbianism, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer, interstatable? Intersectional?
Intersex.
Intersex and asexuality plus, and whatever plus implies, is in and of itself something that is holy. We celebrate the diversity of God's creation in all of its varied and beautiful forms. Well, according to the school, the update prompted donors to stop contributing. They were their own consequence in the making. Many of them, now there's two sides to the story. Don't leave me yet. It's important. I'm not being hateful. There's something to be learned here. In other words, you could have found all the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, queer, I still don't remember intersectional, and asexual, and whoever falls under plus. They could have come and matched these funds. They could say, well, this is what we're going to do in the name of lesbianism, gayness, bisexuality, transgendered, queer. We're going to now make it our mission to help these kids and break this cycle. Nobody did. In other words, this school had every right to change what it wanted to be, and the people that were funding it had every right to walk away. That's not holiness. That's not putting Jesus first. That's putting culture first and the LGBTQIA plus agenda first. Well, what happened? According to the school, the update prompted donors to stop contributing, many of them citing their interpretation of Christianity as the reason. And unless you're intolerant, you got to be tolerant and respect that. Now the school announced it's closing its doors at the end of the year for loss of financial support. Carrie Calloway George, the executive director and co-founder, said this new language is kind of what started the backlash from the donor base, which we anticipated. It was just that we anticipated about a 50% loss in funding. So we made adjustments for that. We had an 80% loss in funding, and that was too much to overcome. The dramatic drop-off in donations came quickly. Soon after the new language appeared on the school's website, 8 churches withdrew their support. First of all, thank God for 8 churches that were doing this to begin with. What a brilliant idea. And it's certainly within their rights and interpretation of Scripture to stop funding that. But here's the best part of the story, if the music will let me. Church members were a donor base that gave much more. The churches themselves were only 2% of the funding, but the members at their church represented about 75% of the funding. After all, church is a lot like a government, right? It doesn't have any money. It only has the money of its members. Government doesn't have any money. It just has members of the people it taxes. So the churches themselves were giving 2% of the funding, but about 75% of the funding was coming from the members at these 8 churches. In December of 2021, right before the public support for the LGBT community, they had raised $333,985. 1 year later, $14,000. I'm not bashing gays by any stretch of the imagination. I'm praising this school and its original vision. And it had every right to change its vision, just as those churches had every right to withdraw their funding and, more importantly, their members. It just all reaped what it sowed. Now, if anybody out there is going, this is fascism, this is intolerance, this is hatred, well, you don't think there's enough money within the LGBTQ, let alone AI plus community to make up that $333,000 difference? And where are they? You see, I have no problem with the school funded with almost $500,000 of gay money for gay cause. And you shouldn't have a problem with nearly $500,000 school funded in Christ money that once Christ is removed and replaced with LGBTQAI plus, leaving. But to our theme, nothing had to be fought. Nothing had to be defeated. It defeated itself. You just can't do that in the name of Jesus. You can do it in a lot of other names, but you can't do it in the name of Jesus. Kind of like what's happening with crime in our inner cities that got rid of Lightfoot. Kind of what's happening with crime in our cities that look ungovernable. And now you even have the president and Democrats punting on this. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to call rioting and destruction good trouble. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to overreact on a couple bad cops and insinuate all who risk their life, all who serve and protect, all who provide law and order are wrong. There's a lot of victories going around. They're not any because we've all fought and defeated. They've defeated themselves. Consequence arrived. All right, I'm Michael DelGiorno for Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. Jeff and his team are simply the best and the most affordable, and the best is not my opinion. They do residential, light commercial. They service all brands, all technologies, conventional and geothermal. They're recognized by Rheem, one of the leading brands, as providing customers with the highest level of year-round comfort and service. Year-round comfort and service, whether it's maintenance, repair, or replacement. That's what I've enjoyed for 14 years. I can't think of a better way of saying it. They're an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi if it comes to electric and heat being a necessity or choice. Best products, maintenance, and pricing. And for everyone, A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau. You should do your air conditioning systems maintenance in the spring and your heater in the fall, because in the winter they turn on and stay on. In the summer, your air conditioner turns on and stays on. It's cleaned up and ready to go, or it's not. It's about to break, or it's not. Best of all, by maintaining them, they don't break and they live long. So it's $125. Can't exceed that, no matter how many units you have. You get that back in energy efficiency. You save hundreds on repair, thousands on early replacement. It's just plain smart to do, and it's not too early to do it. We'll let these wins pass first. 784-4424, whether it's maintenance, repair, or replacement, trust Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling of Tennessee. 784-4424, online at efficienthvac.net.
It is 11 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we have severe weather. Right now, the most dangerous severe weather to report is a tornado warning. This is just north of the Tennessee line in southern Kentucky. The National Weather Service in Paducah issuing a tornado warning for Christian County and Todd County until 11:45. Looks like there is a thunderstorm there capable of producing a tornado. It's moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. The radar is indicating rotation, which is prompting the tornado warning there for southeastern Christian County and southern Todd County until 11:45. Now, in addition to that, on this side of the Tennessee-Kentucky border, we've got a severe thunderstorm warning for several counties. This is until 11:30. These counties include Murray County, Giles, Lawrence, Marshall, and Bedford County. Looks like radar's indicating a thunderstorm about 10 miles southwest of Pulaski, moving northeast at 60 miles per hour. Winds are measured at 70 miles per hour in this. I want to remind you that everywhere in Middle Tennessee, and especially the severe thunderstorm warned area, is under a tornado watch. Now, we have 2 tornado watches now. We've got the first watch for everyone in the western half of Middle Tennessee until 1 o'clock. That includes Nashville, Hendersonville, Lebanon, Mount Juliet, Murfreesboro, and Shelbyville, and points west. That's until 1. Everyone east of those just mentioned are under a tornado watch until 4 o'clock. And in addition to the tornado watch and the severe thunderstorm warning here in parts of Middle Tennessee, and the tornado warning in effect until 11:45 for portions of Kentucky near Fort Campbell until 11:45. We have the high wind warning. That is until 6 o'clock for gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That is the severe weather in a nutshell. It has started, and it looks like for about the next 2 hours, the immediate Nashville area will be under the gun from not just one line of showers and thunderstorms, but 2 of them.
Yeah, Ken, I don't think this is interrupting because I think we're talking about the same thing.
We're in coverage.
It's a north to south line, and there are 2 of them with a break in between. Now, this first line, if you go north, it extends far east of us. I'll give you an example. In Louisville right now, they're getting very heavy rain. Approaching Elizabethtown in Kentucky, there's a real pocket of heavy thunderstorm. Owensboro, probably the one that should be on everybody's mind, is Princeton and south of Princeton, almost to Evansville. That is a line of very heavy thunderstorm, and I believe, and I'm not watching television, I'm having to talk as I'm doing it, that's the one that, to me, looks like it has a couple of what we call hooks or rotation in it. So as for us, getting further south of Owensboro, and then you're now getting into Madisonville, Kentucky, to Hopkinsville, to Oak Grove, maybe extending a little bit east into that Russellville area. There's some pretty heavy thunderstorms over Bowling Green as well, but these are significant areas of thunderstorm. Then you get down below the border. Clarksville should be hitting hard right now. This explains what the super texter was saying was happening in Robertson in the Springfield area. You were starting to get these bands of heavy thunderstorms. For the rest of us, believe it or not, sitting in Nashville right now, the wind is kind of eerily picking up. You're seeing some mist. You're literally minutes away from that first line of storms that Ken is describing. And that's going to pass through Nashville. Quite frankly, if you're looking at the way it's moving and what's in its way, I would say Franklin to Spring Hill down to Columbia, that should be very significant heavy thunderstorm activity. Right now, you mentioned Lawrenceburg and Lewisburg and that area. When you really look at it, the north of the Kentucky border and just south into Alabama, and how many times have we talked about this like new tornado alley that has formed in that area between Birmingham and, really kind of goes from Meridian, Mississippi to Tuscaloosa to Birmingham. I mean, that line of thunderstorms that is south in Alabama and north in Kentucky looks very significant. But not to be outdone, this line that's going to pass through between Nashville, Brentwood, and Franklin looks significant. And then further south, Columbia to Lewisburg is something to keep an eye on. And so I think we pretty much nailed it. And then there'll be a break in between and but I would say that second line that we've been looking at, it's still a thin line of all heavy. There's no outer bands. It's just heavy thunderstorm. But again, that's how our line looked until it got a little further east and widened. So I think everything we've nailed pretty good. It's about to begin. And I think, like the way you described it for tornado effect, anything west of in Middle Tennessee, you're looking at an 11 o'clock hour that looks rough till noon. East, anything really to past 3 o'clock looks pretty rough. It's pretty much playing out the way we thought. Now we just need, and boy, when you have straight winds of 70 miles an hour, I mean, who needs a tornado with that level of wind?
Yeah, these things are moving. It's like the storms themselves are moving in these lines northeasterly at 60 miles per hour.
Yeah. They're moving. Moving in and of themselves. So
and it's starting to rain harder here.
Yeah,
it's coming down.
Well, I told you it's coming any second. So, but that's the deal. This storm is moving so fast. When you hear somebody, there's always that cry wolf aspect. When you hear a meteorologist saying this would be a good time to take precautions, you don't have a lot of time to linger. That's how fast this storm is moving.
Right.
So this is it. This is go time. This is a time to, if you're at home, maybe have the television on a local channel or the radio. Stay put right where you're at. We'll walk you through this. Don't forget on our super text line at 737-WWTN, you guys can be eyes and ears better than anything that's on television.
Please.
Absolutely.
Let us know.
Because you're going to be the one that's seeing it. So, but yeah, this is start time. This is the band, and it's coming through right now. And it's pretty much north to south. I would say that this line that's going to come through from Nashville to Franklin, and then that southern line, I think that's the ones for us to keep an eye on.
Yes.
And I think Kentucky and Alabama are going to be under what looks like far more treacherous guns. So good time of thought, prayer, good time for alertness, and the clock starts now, and it pretty much doesn't expire. I don't think for our listening audience it's going to expire till 4 because we have people listening very east. But for most of us, and you get west of Lebanon, through Lebanon, I would say between now and 3 is a good time to stay very, very weather aware.
I would too. So just to recap, we've got that tornado warning for Christian and Todd counties just across the Tennessee-Kentucky border until 11:45, and then the severe thunderstorm warning for Bedford and Murray counties just to the southwest of Nashville until 11:30, and again, the warned areas are in a tornado watch until 1 o'clock.
Can I do one more that if you haven't expanded out the radar that is impressive? This northern end. See, everything south of southern Kentucky, it forms a very thin north-south line. Above it, are you ready for where the line extends from? It starts right now east of Kansas City, goes all the way through Springfield, Illinois, up through Peoria, south of Chicago. Fort Wayne is getting hammered in Indiana right now. Cincinnati, Dayton, Columbus, up closer to Cleveland and Akron. Then it extends down through Pittsburgh, Morgantown. It just keeps going all the way through the nation's capital. And then there's an early band that's now over Maryland, over Virginia Beach, and out into the ocean. You're talking from Kansas City to the ocean, the northern band of this storm. And then we have these little fingers that are coming down all the way through Alabama to keep an eye on for us. This is a significant storm.
Yeah, and then there's snow just south of Chicago and Detroit. So this is a very remarkable
it really is
storm on radar. And if you'll notice, Michael, it's spinning. The entire thing is spinning from Alabama all the way up through Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. And it's kind of like it's going in a counterclockwise motion.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's where that second line is coming from. It's stretching from St. Louis all the way down to Jackson, Mississippi.
I mean, you and I followed a lot of storms living in Tornado Alley. This one is being fed by warm Gulf waters all the way to snow and cold air in the Great Lakes, and then caught in between. I thought it was interesting this morning. I mean, we had some fun early at a window where we could be having fun with Pamela. Pamela Fear, that is, the panicked girl down the hall. And, of course, what got her attention was Jim Cantore choosing Nashville. It's interesting that he did. I would, if I had to look at this, and I've just covered weather a lot. I am not a meteorologist, but I'm looking at Decatur, Athens, Huntsville to Birmingham, and I am extremely concerned because that's where you get the strength of the warm air.
Just got some good news.
And I'm interested as to why he would have chose Nashville, although I do think that band that's going to come through for us between Nashville and Franklin is a significant one. What's the good news?
Good news is the tornado warning for Christian and Todd counties is canceled.
Good.
However, there's still some very strong storms in that area. And remember, we're still under that tornado watch.
And high wind advisory warning and a very interesting, and then a beautiful weekend on the other side of this. Go figure. All right. Was there any news? I mean, we had the life conviction for.
The only thing is you remember the nurse murder trial? The man convicted of manslaughter in that. Devontae Hill is up for sentencing, and they are having victim impact statements ahead of sentencing here in a Nashville courtroom.
I have somebody saying my weather radar is blowing up in Glasgow, Kentucky. Somebody help me with Glasgow's general area.
Yeah, I got to look that up myself.
Okay, so no good. Because to me, Oak Grove to Clarksville would be an area of extreme concern right this second.
Yeah. Clarksville to Hopkinsville.
It must be. Is Glasgow anywhere near Evansville? That storm in Evansville and the one approaching.
I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, me neither. But you're right. That's where that band is.
That band is,
Evansville.
unless it's that east area that's east of Bloomington, south of Indianapolis. I don't know where you're at, and because I'm not very familiar with that area. But Glasgow is northwest of Bowling Green.
Oh, okay.
That's way further south. So let me look at that.
Now, right now, there's just some moderate rain.
Oh yeah, well yeah, because that stretch from
that's
Hopkinsville to Central City, heading towards Bowling. Yeah, no, you're about to get some really nasty weather any minute now. So yeah, that's really our friends in Kentucky, and now this band that's going to be passing through, really from Nashville, south of Spring Hill, almost to Lewisburg, really is the area of immediate concern. So,
and it's very angry in Alabama.
Yeah.
That line looks angry.
It's all angry.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have the existence of an outer band. It just gets straight to the angry.
Yes, it
We'll
does.
keep you posted as it goes. It's 11:13. News brought to you by. I like this one off the super text line. Why doesn't DelGiorno just stop being rude and talking over conversations? You always got to make it about him. I'm the host of the show, and severe weather's passing through. Do you want to hear this? By the way, I'm watching Channel 4 even as we speak. And by the way, I'm going to play a little bit of their audio. I will say this, Ken. They are concerned with the very same two lines. Now, first of all, I'm sure they're just as concerned with what's happening in Alabama and northern Kentucky. But the two lines of storms they're very concerned about is that one that extends from Greenville down to Elkton, which is kind of heading east towards Bowling Green, and rightly so. And they're looking at the same one I am that's going to be coming through Bellevue and Nashville and really extend down to Columbia. Columbia just had all heaven open up on them, and it's about to pass through Lewisburg. It's just starting to open up. She's already covered that. Now she's over into Kentucky right now. Let's pot up Channel 4 if we can. They're looking at the same two line of storms we are.
And we're noticing here maybe a little bit of hail with this too. A lot of heavy rain, heavy downpours. Again, the wind is going to be the main threat for today. There is a tornado threat for us. We have a tornado watch that goes until about 1 o'clock for Davidson County and along those metro areas. Back here toward the eastern half of the mid-state, that tornado watch goes until 4 o'clock. That one's been extended. So 1 o'clock along I-65. If you live east of I-65, it's going to be a little bit closer here into the plateau. And I'll have Stefano talk a bit more about some of those warnings.
And you know what? It's very interesting, too, that because once all these storms go through, you're going to think that the threat is going to be over. But the issue is that we're still going to see the threat of damaging wind gusts beyond all of this. So we have a high wind warning that remains in effect for pretty much the entire mid-state through 6 o'clock this evening. So even once this lines of storms works its way through and we stop with all the heavier rainfall, the tornado threat diminishes, there's still going to be 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, even maybe up to the end of our evening commute in some areas. So just because the storms are over doesn't mean we can't see additional power outages, additional damage in some spots. Right now, your highest severe weather threat, I know those storms are approaching the I-65 corridor, so now our eyes are all going to focus off to the east. As we get out toward the Cumberland Plateau, it's been a little bit more quiet here over the last couple of hours, and the more that we've had an opportunity to warm up, the more these storms can strengthen. So high winds, that's still the main concern. 60, 70 miles per hour, that's within the thunderstorms. Without the thunderstorms, still high winds of everywhere from 50 to 60 miles per hour. Isolated tornado threat, a couple of those could very well pop up. And then still not ruling out some hail. Looks like a very low-end threat, though. And then maybe, again, some localized flooding in some of those locations, Melanie.
Yeah, and we just got word from the National Weather Service that they are about to issue a severe thunderstorm warning for Nashville, the metro area here in Davidson County and in Williamson County. So just we'll toss them back to the
that's that
anchors
same
for
line
now.
that we were. We'll come back to it in a minute, but that's that same line, that initial line that we were looking at. There's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is the intensity. The good news is how fast it's moving, and Ken talked about it.
Yeah, it is sped up since we started our coverage at the top of the hour.
Yeah, this first band, which right now extends probably as far west as Dixon, maybe a little west of Dixon. And right now the leaning easterly edge is in Lewisburg to the south, approaching Franklin, Brentwood, and Nashville. And really that line that's in Clarksville now extending down to Dixon, that seems to be along with the line well south of Columbia that will probably pass through Lawrenceburg and Lewisburg. Those are the two most intense. So they're following the same thing we are as far as we're concerned. What's going to come through is a first wave west of 65 in Middle Tennessee, and then the second wave as it passes through and gets to the east side. From a west side perspective, it's already beginning, and it's going to be with us probably, my guess is, till at least 12:30. Then you'll have a little break until the second band gets here, and that's when the eastern section will be under the gun. So I think we have pretty much nailed what Channel 4 is looking at and covering. And I will tell you this in the name of transparency, and Ken has done this over 30 plus years. I've done it 40 years, and we happen to do it for 20 years in a place where this is commonplace day after day after day for about a 3-month period.
Yeah.
There is, I don't care who your television station is and who its chief meteorologist is, who your radio station is, we're only as good as the eyes and ears that are out in it. And staffs today, both on television more so than radio, aren't what they used to be. There's nothing more valuable than you right now.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why when I say if there was ever a time, I know it began to storm in Franklin, My wife just is outside wearing her Predators mask.
By the way, we
And
do have
helmet.
now a severe thunderstorm warning for Nashville, Williamson
and
County,
Williamson.
Cheatham, and Robertson and Sumner County.
Yeah, that
until
was
11:45.
That was just issued right before we cut away from Channel 4.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's reiterate that. So you're going to start seeing some of these storms. We're getting a report on the super text line. Look at the monster between Lewisburg and Pulaski. Well, that's the one I've had my eye on. And that's the one that when you zoom in has what looks like could be some pockets that could create rotation. And that's something that, unfortunately, Ken and I have gotten very good at noticing these hooks that exist. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means when it does happen, that's exactly where it does happen. And there's one, I just over-zoomed now. Let me back zoom. I wanted to get the exact place where that was. I don't know where, I lost it, but it's in that Pulaski area. So, guys, don't be hesitant to just 737-WWTN to text. If you want to call in, if you've got some kind of fantastic report, we'd love to hear it.
And you can do it safely.
But even a text, it is so good for us to see. We're describing what we're seeing on radar. Joe's down there living in it between Lewisburg and Pulaski. And then I'm going to pot up Channel 4 a little bit more, too, as they're covering these storms as they come through. But I think we all got our eye on the ball. Two big bands. Now, it extends from Kansas City to the Atlantic Ocean to the north. There's some really heavy bands in Kentucky and what looks like some really dangerous bands, to my eye, in Alabama. But what we're experiencing is starting right now, and it's going to be extending from north of Nashville and probably south of Columbia, and it's about to pass through very quickly, but pass through in the next 20 minutes. You'll hear it all as it happens right here on WTN with the assistance of Channel 4.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where does this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
All right, so that severe thunderstorm warning until 11:45 now covers Nashville, Sumner County, Williamson County, Cheatham County, and Robertson County. The storms in this line are moving rapidly at 65 miles per hour. 70-mile-per-hour winds have been clocked, according to radar, so that's enough to cause tree damage. Maybe some homes and roofs on homes, outbuildings. So you definitely want to be aware that this severe thunderstorm warning for Nashville, Sumner, Williamson, Cheatham, and Robertson counties is a serious situation because we are in that tornado watch until 1 o'clock. So that means that there is enough ingredient in the atmosphere for any of these severe thunderstorms to turn into a tornado. At this moment, we do not have that happening, and for that, we'll keep our fingers crossed. But yes, severe thunderstorm warning now for about the next 15 minutes for Nashville, Sumner, Williamson, Cheatham, and Robertson County.
And high wind warning in effect as well. I'm getting a lot of confirmation from everybody on the super text line of what I'm seeing on the radar. Somebody reported from the Clarksville Country Club that the golf course sky is beginning to clear. That's the good news. This storm is moving fast. So for Clarksville, it's past you, the first line, that is.
Yeah.
Dixon, the first line has passed you. Lawrenceburg, Mount Pleasant. I just got one a minute ago from Pulaski saying that now that the sun is out. Yeah, that's because it's moved on, and it's headed towards Tullahoma. Lewisburg, you got like a double whammy coming. So you got through the first wave. There's a second wave coming. Quite frankly, that wave is looking more and more significant for Bellevue and Nashville than it really is Brentwood and Franklin. And then south of Franklin, it looks to be a little bit more intense. So I suspect, and there's a pretty good pocket over Smyrna right now, but I suspect what's coming for Murfreesboro might be more intense than what we initially thought might be Franklin and Brentwood. So a little extra eye on you. And probably by the end of Ken's newscast, Hendersonville, you should start seeing the beginnings of a ban that's coming your way. So it's, again, the good news is moving very fast. Bad news is there's two lines, and we got the first line passing through as we speak. That's why we do the news and the weather continuously. I can tell you on the other side of Ken, we're probably going to pot up Channel 4 for a few more minutes because I want to see this ban explained as it's kind of heading through right now. So I would say Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Lebanon, Hendersonville, it's time for you to be all ears. The rest of you, like Franklin, Brentwood, and Spring Hill, it's passing through or happening as we speak. We'll get you the very latest and keep you posted.
Right as you were speaking, Michael, the National Weather Service has now expanded the severe thunderstorm warning. It is until 12:15 now for Nashville, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, Wilson, and Bedford counties. This is a severe thunderstorm warning. It's along a line extending from near Franklin to just 8 miles east of Thompson Station, 11 miles north of Lewisburg, and it is moving rapidly northeast at 65 miles per hour. Radar clocking winds at 70 miles per hour. That is enough to cause damage. And also the concern with any of these storms right now is the fact that the warned areas are under a tornado watch until 1 o'clock. That's the first tornado watch. Everybody in East Tennessee, including East Middle Tennessee, is under a tornado watch until 4 o'clock this afternoon. And as we've been telling you, we've got two bands on radar that we're concerned with. The one right now over Nashville that's prompting this thunderstorm warning for Marshall, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, Wilson, and Bedford County until 12:15. But then there's another band behind it, a smaller band, but it is still showing very intense storms in it. So severe thunderstorm warning for about the next 45 minutes for Nashville, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, Wilson, and Bedford counties. Remember, the warned area under a tornado watch until 1 o'clock.
Ken, maybe you can help me. Got this report, tornado sirens going off in Deckard County, or in Deckard, Tennessee.
Deckard, Tennessee. Let's see.
You got me on that one. Here's another one from Nate while you're looking that up. Just left Bojangles on Charlotte Park in Walmart. Sun is starting to come out. Keith Andrews, smart aleck from my high school, clear as a bell. He's down in Mobile, Alabama. I live on Highway 25 near I-65. Have had one batch of heavy rain, some wind come through. I got to tell you another thing that I'm noticing, and I want to listen to Channel 4 to understand more if they get to that. Thunder starting in Murfreesboro. Yeah, I would think Murfreesboro.
A little south of Tullahoma.
Oh, a little south of Tullahoma?
Deckard, yeah.
The other is, and I want to hear him. He's looking over this line that is passing through Madison, Nashville, and probably through Brentwood right now and headed towards Smyrna. I can tell you that second wave that we saw, I kept expecting it to expand like the first wave. It's actually diminishing. We may only have one wave come through between now and 3 from Nashville south. And I'm wondering if they're going to explain any of that. See if they're still using the two-wave model. Let's pot it up. This is
Smithville,
Stefano
Alexandria, out near Cookeville, Crossville, McMinnville. All of those locations, we're still expecting strong, if not severe, thunderstorms to roll through, Melanie.
Yeah, that's right. And also on top of this, we're talking about the strong winds. I'm kind of monitoring our chat and monitoring my phone. We're getting text messages and pictures of people's trash cans being blown over. Lots of big tree limbs down.
Can you see the second line they're showing right now from Waverly to Paris and all that?
Yes.
If you put that in motion, you will see it move northerly and diminish simultaneously to where I'm not so certain a second wave is coming through the metro.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to die out.
Die out. That's what the future radar is showing it doing, but the one that is passing through is worthy of our attention. So let's listen.
If your power is flickering off and on, there's a good chance it may go out with these strong storms rolling through. Once this all passes, hopefully the guys at NES can get out there to restore power very quickly. I know they have been working on it throughout the day. We've seen these strong wind gusts as early as 3 a.m. this morning, and they're just going to continue as we go into this evening. So as we mentioned, even after all these storms are gone, the wind will still remain. So even though we have thunderstorms right now, we had one tornado warning earlier, we are still going to continue to watch for those high wind gusts, over 60-mile-per-hour winds. You can see just that line up and down I-65 pretty much right now of these severe thunderstorm warnings. Just to give you a running track of them right now, if you live in Bedford, Davidson, Marshall, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, or Wilson County, you have got a severe thunderstorm warning in your area until 12:15. We're talking wind speeds of over 70 miles per hour, radar indicated hail, and this is considered a considerable damage threat, not just for power outages, but these winds can blow things over that you maybe have outside of your home. If you have kids' toys out in your lawn, if you live over closer toward the plateau, go out and grab them now before this gets closer toward you. If you're in Nashville, areas up and down I-65, it's too late. You need to stay inside because it's just really coming down. A little bit of lightning with this, and a lot of thunder you're probably hearing too. So let's zoom back into a couple of these areas where we're seeing those severe thunderstorm warnings. I'll give you a couple of areas with some street names too, up and down I-65. Man, it's really coming down just over the interstate now. If you live closer toward maybe the Millersville area, really coming down on you. Goodlettsville, seeing a lot of this. North Hills Estate, it's got a couple of little neighborhoods here. Hunters Lane High School, seeing this too. We'll head down a little bit closer into Madison and Maplewood. Inglewood, part of East Nashville, really getting hit hard too. Letting up a little bit back here down toward Metro right now. You see that little break over downtown Nashville, but if you live in East Nashville, heading out toward Wilson County, this is heading straight for you. And we'll head down over 440 into Berry Hill. Woodbine about to get really hammered with some heavy rain. Franklin Road Academy, it's right over you right now. And we'll see a lot of heavy rain back here closer into Rutherford County too. Kimbrough, Laverne, Eastwood, Stone Ridge. If I'm calling out any of your neighborhoods, this is right on top of you. This is not a tornado, but you know, these gusty winds sometimes can do just as much damage as rotation.
70-mile-per-hour wind gusts is enough to take down large trees, take down power poles, cause damage in parts of your area. We do have trees down on roadways right now. This is in Bumpus Mills near Stewart County. That's coming in from emergency managers. Now, by the way, I will say this. There's a tag on here from the National Weather Service that says that that's non-thunderstorm wind damage. So it's exactly what we've been talking about on the backside of these storms. The storms will go through and they're packing a punch that can obviously cause some damage, but on the backside, the wind is staying gusty to about 50, 60 miles per hour.
All right, if we can just recap, there was an initial thunderstorm warning that was in effect. That was all of us. That was Davidson County, Nashville, through Williamson County to Spring Hill. That has since expired. Now we have another one that's going to go until about 11:45, maybe even to 12:15.
Yeah, 12:15.
And that's going more northerly and easterly. And then, of course, the wind advisory that's in effect. So it's pot them back up. Now they're on this second band, and I'm interested if they'll put it in motion and show. I don't know that it's going to affect the metro area. I think this second band is more of a concern for Kentucky.
Strong line of storms.
But it'll be in spots like Hopkinsville, Oak Grove, and Clarksville. As this continues to move off to the east, we'll see spots continue to see these heavier downpours, these gusty, damaging winds as well. That damage threat considerable continues for areas that are east of Nashville now, as the worst of this gets out of downtown, by the way, which very interesting. Guys, if you can pull up our Nissan camera.
Oh, it's going to show sunshine.
Real quick
Watch.
for us. I don't know if you can readily do it. I mean, look at the picture.
Wow.
It looks like nothing happened.
Yeah.
We just had a gusty wind, heavy rainfall, 70-mile-per-hour wind gust possible in some of these spots, and now the sun is out, but the wind stays gusty. It's
now, here's where I get different than meteorologists. That doesn't disappoint me. I thank God that so far, and we still got a ways to go east of town to get through this without a tornado or without any really heavy straight wind damage. But I'm never disappointed when the threat of bad weather turns out to not cause loss of property or loss of life. So, but this first initial ban, I think, is the only ban that in our listening audience we're really going to be dealing with. And it is now well east of Nashville, Brentwood, Franklin. It's now more of an Antioch, Smyrna, heading towards Lebanon, or even to the south, although it's pouring at Corey the Yard Boys right now. So that's going to become a far more easterly thing. And I would think that's probably good for the next hour and a half or so. And then after that, still the threat of wind and power outages, but the worst will have passed. And believe it or not, a beautiful weekend ahead, not to be lost in all this.
Well, you know, this high wind warning that we have, I got to tell you, Brother Michael, I think what is happening is, and what we're seeing right now with half of Nashville under sunshine, is this cold air that's mixing is going to be coming in like a lion, because all of this warmer air is pushing off to the north. Now this colder air is coming in. And we've seen the counterclockwise motion of these storms that are stretching, like we mentioned earlier, all the way up to Detroit and Chicago, where it's actually snowing in some parts. And that's what's going to be hanging with us all day long is this cold air replacing this hot air. And apparently it's going to be quite intense at times.
Well, the high today, of course, we've already experienced. Well, actually, the high we're experiencing right this second. In fact, it's still reporting 71 in Nashville.
Right.
I expect that to fall
Yes.
into the mid-60s by the drive home.
Maybe
And
that's
then-
where that second line is. Maybe that's where the colder
yeah,
air is.
I mean, you would have thought it'd been with this first line, but it doesn't seem to be, at least not by reporting. All right, so one tornado warning has expired, or one severe thunderstorm warning has expired. The second one is due to expire. Most of the heavy in the first line, heavy thunderstorm activity and wind has passed now east of I-65. So this is an east of I-65 story to continue follow, and we will as we continue on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. right. Currently at 11:45, we have some sun peeking out over Franklin as the storms have passed through in 70. Mount Juliet, you still have some light rain in the area in 71 degrees. The Borough, you're about to get hit with some pretty heavy thunderstorms here in the next few seconds. Hendersonville, rain and wind in 70. I did get this off the Super Text hotline. We're listening all the way in Gatlinburg. And I can tell you, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, I know you're waiting for it to come there. That would be about 4 o'clock. Believe it or not, this thing is moving faster than a vehicle in your direction. So I've kind of looked at the radar in advance mode, and it looks like about 4 o'clock, it'll be kind of spreading from Knoxville into your area. and you should have some winds, but should just be heavy rain at that point. This is Opry Mills area, now blue skies.
Remarkable.
Kind of nice to watch, says Don. He's in the Laverne area. Peaks of sunshine in Petersburg now from Corey the Yard Boy. This was just about, which is an eternity, 5 to 6 minutes ago. But in Cookeville, they were seeing some pretty significant winds still, 25 plus miles an hour southeast to easterly and to northwesterly, kind of swirling as we were talking about earlier. Springfield headed south, and you can see there's some clearing there now. Michael, I'm 13 miles south of Clarksville. We've had severe bouts of rain, not much wind until now. It's interesting. There kind of seems to be a theme, Ken, developing in that during the thunderstorm, heavy downpour, once the thunderstorm passes is when you start dealing with the wind, and with the wind can come the power outages. And that's something we've said all day, that this first line, now I'll tell you right now, you can look at the current radar. This is like 8 minutes later from when we were talking. And the current radar has that line of storms, other than light rain. There's nothing really heavy until Paris and Clarksville. Mm-hmm. And then it gets much more Hopkinsville and northern severe. I'm telling you, that second line that once extended all the way to Alabama is all but diminished from about Nashville up. Nashville down. So I actually don't think that second line is even coming through for our listening audience.
Yeah, it looks like it's not even not even stretching south of I-40 anymore.
No, not budging in Kentucky, as you can see. It's as intense as ever when you get to Princeton and other areas. I don't know what they're saying on Channel 4. We could pot it back up. But, I mean, one of the storylines was from the very beginning when this first line would come through, the damaging winds that follow, and then the second line, and then a cooling off of temperatures, and still kind of keep your eye on winds until about 6 o'clock. Well, it has changed. The first line got a lot more. It moved very fast, but it got a lot more width to it, and it passed through. And the second line seems to be shrinking northerly. So I don't know that we're going to have a 1-2 punch. In fact, so much to tell you that I think I'm a straight shot home as soon as I get off the air at noon. And the reports seem to be bearing that out.
Michael, this severe thunderstorm that has prompted the warning until noon for Rutherford, Coffee, Bedford, Cannon.
Well, that's that McMinnville, Murfreesboro storm I was telling you about.
That's moving 75 miles per hour.
That's just, wow. And that's your good news and bad news, right? I mean, it's going to be like a roller coaster. It's going to be a really heavy, fun ride, and then it's going to be over. And if you're thinking, let's do it again, I don't think that second line is coming.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is diminishing before our eyes.
And I saw that 45 minutes ago happening. So, and that's good news. I mean,
it is.
Look, we want this to pass through and everyone be safe. I got one with what does the red circle mean? Is that anger or just read this?
No, that's like, hey, look at this text.
Okay.
Much. He's just,
apparently, he was there due to an anniversary from 20. Oh, so he was here to cover the anniversary of the previous storm.
Yep.
And expecting high wind and potentially storms and snow.
The March 3rd tornadoes. Yeah. Tracking power outages, Michael, right now on NES. Little over 5,200 people without power in Davidson County.
Yeah. And then you remember Channel 4 was talking about the power outages in Stewart County were actually not caused by the storms, but by this high wind warning.
Yeah, because, the storms are moving very, very fast. They're very, very intense while they last in pockets. It hasn't been intense, heavy thunderstorms straight down the I-65 line, and it's not holding up east of 65 in that way. Some areas are getting much worse than others. I'm trying to think right now. Now they're over Mount Juliet should be getting a wave even as we speak. Laverne should be in some pretty heavy rain right now. And then that next pocket is well south. That's the one that's ultimately heading towards McMinnville.
Yes.
And right now, as we talked about at the time, Shelbyville, Manchester, Lawrenceburg, these were areas that were going to get hit pretty hard.
Yeah, they're getting hammered right now.
They're getting hammered right now. So, but I don't know that a second line is coming. Lewisburg should be sunny by now, right? So
very interesting.
Yeah, and that's the speed of it.
Yeah.
In Petersburg, I don't know if this is. Is everybody in Petersburg a wise guy?
Wiseacre.
I'm in Petersburg spraying chicken houses, and a gust actually probably hit 60 to 70 miles an hour. So everything now has turned from heavy rain and downpours to wind reports. Here's heavy wind in Grundy County being reported. More power outage reports. Would you say 5,000 in Davidson County? I would expect that maybe. Be interesting to see if Wilson and Rutherford end up worse than that.
Yeah.
Right now, Giles County, 4,700. Lawrence County, over 2,000. Wayne, some power outages there as well.
And just to show you can't please everyone, here's someone saying, I miss the show.
It's
It's 11:51 at the impossible to please everyone, super ungrateful 99.7 WTN.
All right, just had a new severe thunderstorm warning issued for central Sumner County until 12:15. This storm located near Portland, about 12 miles north of Gallatin. It is moving northeast at 65 miles per hour and consistent with the storms we have been reporting on for now over an hour. They have 70 mile per hour sustained winds in these storms, so that's enough for some damage. And you want to keep in mind the warned area is under a tornado watch until 1 o'clock. That's what's happening
Ken,
right now.
This just in off the Super Text hotline. Is this a weather station now? I, from our Music Row studios, opened the blinds. I read the back of our promotion van. And it says Super
too.
Talk 99.7 WTN, Nashville's news, talk, traffic, and weather station. Therefore, I would like to answer the malcontent on the super text line. Yes, in fact, when weather is threatening, we are a weather station.
Yes.
That is the answer. The storm, there is these people, and it really does exist. I guarantee you, my wife, she had on her pecorine.
Oh, wow.
Goalie helmet on. And she did a live report, but the storms were so intense, I didn't think anybody wanted any comedic interaction.
Yeah, you never know why.
But she'll be one of these. I am such a letdown. This is so disappointing. Thinking I'm going to do like Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump and yell out, "You call this a storm?" No, look, at the end of the day, if this passes through and you still got power and no damage and nobody hurt, that's what we want.
Yes, sir.
Crying out loud.
Yes, sir.
Heavy rain right now. By the way, when you're super texting us, I love the pictures of your neighborhood. Beautiful home, by the way. Should I do like Dan Mandis?
Yeah.
Beautiful home, 72047.
72.
But area of town would be helpful for me. I'll take weather over what is it? I'll take weather over sports any day.
Wonder if that's Lori or whatever that one person.
I'm telling you, the more I understand you people, the more I really. Does this happen on sports stations, Mac?
Yeah, well, does it, Brother Mac?
Does what?
Do you end up hating your listeners?
For different reasons. But yeah, for sure.
Dave Macy would never do all weather. Who is? I don't even know who Dave Macy is.
Dave Macy.
Dave, I'm looking him up.
I like to think that Dave Macy, if a severe thunderstorm passed through, would do weather.
He might let people know.
Don't tell me some guy that ignored the obvious is in the Hall of Fame and I'm not. No, don't give me your exact address for crying out loud. But I'll see you at 12:30 if lunch is on. He was at WTN years ago.
Oh, okay.
I've been here 16 years ago. So you mean decades ago, because he wasn't here 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the one to end on. Have a nice weekend. Well, that's the hope.
Oh, well, there you go.
You never know. Could end in bypass for me, but I'll bet you old Ed Macy would never talk about his bypass surgery while people are in harm's way with weather.
Old Ed Macy.
Who the hell is Ed Macy?
I don't.
Who was the guy before? I'll never forget when I first got here, they were taking his cups, something Miller, and they were just putting the sticker over his name and still handing him out at remotes. And I was getting you're no G. Gordon Liddy. I hope you die of cancer. I was getting those.
Goodness.
Well, I'll tell you, it's just so much fun serving you in greats. I'll turn it over to Matt Murphy next. And if I'm not an open heart surgery, I'll see you Monday morning at 9 right here on the Big W. I am what you call out of here.
Twelve o'clock on the dot this Friday afternoon. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we have a brand new severe thunderstorm warning just issued. This is going to be until 12:30. It includes Rutherford, Coffee, Wilson, Bedford, Cannon, White, DeKalb, and Warren counties. This is until 12:30. Radar's indicating a severe thunderstorm. It looks like it's about 8 miles east of Murfreesboro to 14 miles southwest of Woodbury. It is 9 miles east of Shelbyville, and it's moving northeast at 65 miles per hour. Some of the locations impacted: Murfreesboro, Shelbyville, McMinnville, Manchester, Smithville, Woodbury, Watertown, Alexandria, Morrison, Ward Trace, Bell Buckle, Dowelltown, Liberty, Auburntown, Centertown, Normandy, Rock Island State Park, Beech Grove, Rouse, and Center Hill Lake. Again, 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts detected by radar in this severe thunderstorm warning until 12:30 now for Rutherford, Warren, Coffee, Wilson, Bedford, White, Cannon, and DeKalb counties. And remember, the severe thunderstorm warned area is under a tornado watch for one more hour. That's everyone in West Middle Tennessee, then everyone in East Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee under a tornado watch until 4 o'clock today. And in addition to the severe thunderstorms, we still got to worry about that high wind warning. That's in effect until 6 o'clock this evening. The high wind warning as a result of 30 to 35 mile per hour sustained winds, but gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That's enough to damage property even without there being a storm involved. That's your latest news. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.